Hello, my friends. My name is Ryan Freeman. Welcome to this book review. Today I'm bringing you Max Weber's The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. It's written in 1905. Very old book, but still in print. So we can assume that it has garnered a lot of interest over the last 116 years. I am glad that I read this. I have not finished all of the appendix as well as the endnotes. There's a lot of material here. So I may make another video, but I'll go ahead and give you my thoughts as well as a quick summary about what it's all about. So, the spirit of capitalism, what is it? Max Weber gives a very good example of it by quoting Benjamin Franklin, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but he starts off this very grandiloquent diatribe about the importance of making money. Benjamin Franklin does back in the 1700s, where Benjamin Franklin says, time is money. So spend every day making as much money as you can. Don't go gather the rosebuds. Don't smell the roses. Don't walk under the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows. Make money. Work hard. Save that money. Then invest that money so you can make more money. That was Benjamin Franklin's idea. So, that, of course, the spirit of capitalism. Capitalism's like a really, broad, multifarious, multifaceted topic. But that was a very, sort of a poignant or a very nice example of at least one main vein of the spirit of capitalism, and that is to work, making work your priority, and prudentially and pragmatically investing that money so that you can make more money and have more possessions and more capital, have a bigger house, be successful. Success is by your hard work. Work, work, work. That's what life should be. Capitalism. We all know what capitalism is. We live in a capitalist society where everyone's struggling to work and get the bigger house and get more houses and more vehicles and more things and show it off on Facebook, and so you can rise in the social rankings. Okay, so where did that come from? So Max Weber, the very start of the book is called The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. So Max Weber makes the argument that it started in the Protestant religions, the Protestant Reformation. So back in the 1500s, when Luther, as well as other theological leaders, broke away from the Catholic Church, their theology changed the European consciousness in a profound way. This is Max Weber's argument. So basically, the Catholic idea and the traditional European idea back then was you worked for your daily bread. Work was a necessary evil. You had to eat, so you had to work. But, the best part of the day was chumming it up with your friends, drinking an ale or, enjoying life. But the Protestants changed that. The Protestants became obsessed with working, and they became obsessed with good business. So how was it that the Protestants were making all of the money? How were their businesses thriving while the Catholics weren't? And so this was Max Weber's analysis of the various factors that went into this kind of split in thinking about life and in work. And how did the Catholics and everyone else and now the rest of the world get dragged into this whole ideology of work, 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 and make more money and get a bigger house and more things and all of that? So, one classic example, and in all of this, because guys, I don't remember everything that was said and all of the words explicitly, but I'm giving you the general overall flavor, was that when Martin Luther translated the Bible and translated Scripture, he made this idea of the calling. It's your calling. That's your calling to be a teacher. It's your calling to make shoes. You guys have heard of that, the calling. Well, where did that idea come from, the calling? Well, it came from Martin Luther. Martin Luther's translation of the Bible and his theology that he developed according to Max Weber, and he gives very good examples, and he references everything, and he includes the originals words, so that there's no doubt that he's not just making it up. This idea became a very important part of the original Protestant theology as it broke away in Lutheranism and then into the many other sects and denominations. He talks about the Quakers, the Methodists, the Pietists, the Puritans, the Baptists, and he quotes all of them. And one of the biggest transformations, because the Lutherans only went so far, one of the biggest transformations was what happened with the Calvinists. Now, if you've never heard of Calvinism or the Calvinist idea, you haven't been in a church in a long time, I bet, because the Calvinists had, and I believe they're probably still around, they had some very interesting ideas. And one of their interesting ideas was that God predestined all of us to either go to heaven or either go to hell. So it had nothing to do with you. You couldn't help get yourself into heaven or hell. Your idea of faith, that had nothing to do. God simply said, okay, these guys go to heaven, these guys go to hell. So that was the belief. But, if you could imagine being an early Calvinist and adopting this idea, it would be pretty hard for you because you would never know, well, am I going to heaven? And that's hard for all Christians and all religious people. You never really know, are you going to heaven or hell? But the Calvinists had this added thing where it was already determined. And so they were trying to find out, how can I find out? How can I find out? And so they kept bugging their pastors, how can I find out? How can I find out? And finally, the theology eventually developed, even after Calvin was already more or less fading from this part of the scene, his original theology, but developed from his followers and the people who continued in his church was, oh, you know how you could find out? By how good's your business? How good's your work? Are you following your calling? So I know it sounds silly, okay? It sounds silly because I haven't presented a very detailed argument and analysis of all of the theological developments that had occurred to lead to this happening. But that's what happens in Max Weber's The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. I'm just giving you guys a brief rundown. But basically, have you guys ever heard of asceticism? Asceticism is sort of that sort of rejection of the world. I'm not going to have too much sex. Maybe no sex. I'm not going to have really rich foods. I'm not going to touch alcohol or other drugs. I'm just going to be pure, right? That's the idea of asceticism. And asceticism has religious roots, thousands and thousands of years. But before the Protestant Reformation, asceticism was mainly expressed through monks. Monks would just go live off in the desert. Or they would live in a little commune somewhere and just pray. That was the traditional Catholic expression, monks living together and praying and doing that sort of thing. But the Protestants didn't like that. They transferred this ascetic impulse, this impulse to be holy, to this impulse, into work. You show it by work. You prove your faith in God, your salvation by working and by the success of your business. And so these Protestants had flourishing businesses because they weren't cheating. And they had set prices. They weren't gouging you. So they had better reliability. They were better workers. They weren't drinking alcohol. So they flourished. The Protestants became really the wealthy ones and the hard workers and the model for business. And so I hope you guys can see that there are some very strong threads and linkages between the Protestant ethic. I want to be saved. I want to be right before God. These were people who weren't just faking it. You might know some Christians today who might not be so overzealous about their faith, but I hope you guys can have an imagination of how people really felt about the salvation of their soul several hundred years ago. These people were serious, and it got translated into this very capitalistic spirit and of wealth, but also not. See, making money has been around since the dawn of time. Weber talks about that, its manifestations throughout all of the ages. But, people who made a lot of money before, they tended to enjoy it, have some concubines, have silk pillows that were imported and fine wines and cheeses, but not these new rich Protestants. No. They were saving that money and investing that money. They weren't drinking wine. They weren't philandering. Of course, probably it did happen, but as a overall general tenor of this religious sentiment also came with, not overspending. So if you go back to that Benjamin Franklin paraphrase that I said, time is money, work hard, save it, invest it, be diligent, this is where it came from. It came from this Reformation that happened, because Luther describes the Catholic idea or even the medieval European mentality towards work was basically, I think I probably just mentioned already, but just, work for your daily bread and enjoy life. And so the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism, which we still live in, which is, work, what's your job, how much money are you making, how big's your house, and all of that, how many possessions do you have, it would have been considered indecent, immoral, and silly from a medieval perspective and from an ancient perspective, although greed and avarice are as old as humanity, which Weber frankly admits. And he also says that the Protestant ethic wasn't the only constituent factor that went into creating the spirit of capitalism, but it was a very strong one. And so I highly recommend, if you are interested in that, if you go, why is it everyone's working all the time and we get all this money and we just save up this money and we're not singing in the streets. We're not tickling each other in wild orgies in the forest. Why are we living this way? Well, I don't know if this will give you all the answers, but it might help. The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism by Max Weber, written in 1905, still printed today in multiple different versions. Highly controversial, but highly interesting. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Write down what you thought in the comments. My name's Ryan Freeman. Thank you for watching. Bye.